This is the last chapter, chapter 16, Honor Thy Children. Challenging old assumptions. There has been a general assumption on the part of many people that if a relinquished child is placed with adoptive parents early enough, they will not experience separation trauma. This is an assumption to which I have taken exception. Some of the research which I've used to challenge this assumption pertains to the importance of prenatal bonding, the psychological and physiological preparation for birth by the mother. The awareness pertains, hold on, the awareness of infants at birth and the significance of early postnatal bonding and imprinting experiences, which will be different for infants who experience a bonding continuum than for those who experience separation from the biological mother. Another assumption, which is perpetuated by some social workers, adoption agencies, and other adoption facilitators, is that if an adoptive couple loves a child enough, they will be fine. This places tremendous expectations on both the adoptive parents and the child because it completely ignores the idea that love is a form of communication, which has to be received as well as given. For a child who is given up by the one person in the world from whom they might have been able to expect unconditional love, the ability to trust love from anyone else is, I believe, impaired. And that is so true. Because especially the body keeps score, which we will be covering in a few months, but it is a great book to cover because our body does remember even with trauma, even as young as infants, newborns, even a day, 2 days, our body will remember it and our trauma responses are real and valid. The mother connection. There is an assumption inherent in my theory that the primary relationship is the one between mother and child. The assumption is based upon my understanding of the current research into prenatal psychological, hormonal, and sociological connections to the fetus in utero and of the subsequent part of the mother, plays as representative of the newborn self as related by Newman and by Mailer. It is understood that human beings are adaptable, but there is much that is yet to be learned about the cost of that adaptability. So far as the substitution of mothers is concerned, this is especially true if that adaptation had to begin at the pre-consciousness, pre-verbal stage of post-uterine life. What this research implies to me is that the key to self-esteem may lie in the initial relationship of a child to their mother. This mother-child relationship seems to me to be so profound as to be mystical. The early bonding experience, a continuum between the prenatal and postnatal experience of the mother-child unity, suffusing the child with concomitant feelings of security, trust, and unconditional love, may go a long way towards sending a child on the path of self-esteem and self-worth, putting the well-being of the child first. I believe that society would benefit from making secure that mothers who want to and are emotionally capable of caring for their children be encouraged and allowed to do so. It makes no sense to me that we take babies away from mothers who had no financial resources and then pay someone else, foster parents, to take care of them. Why not pay the real mother? Some women are courageous enough to withstand the scum of society and humiliation by family members to go on welfare and keep their children. This is not easy because of the stigma attached to such an arrangement. I know of one such courageous woman. When she became pregnant, she refused to give up her baby, even though her parents disowned her. She went on welfare for 3 years so that she could stay home with her baby and give her a good start in life. This was a humiliating experience for her, but she was willing to face the humiliation in order to give her daughter a strong connection to her and a feeling of love and security. This was a woman who put the welfare of her baby first, before herself, her relationship with her parents, her career, or material comfort. It was a sacrifice, but it paid off in a wonderful daughter who trusts people and is not afraid of intimacy. Many pregnant women, however, lose faith in their own inner knowledge. They blew it by getting pregnant. They can no longer trust their intuition or instincts, so they listen to authorities. Don't be selfish, they are told. Give your baby to someone who can really care for them. Even if they question the idea of anyone else being able to take care of their babies as well as they could, they begin to feel selfish for even entertaining the idea of doing so. They are vulnerable and confused and unscrupulous people, taking advantage of their vulnerability, thereby condemning both mother and child to lives of yearning and torment. What constitutes security? It is thus that society's tendency to be judgmental gets in the way of making good decisions. There needs to be a different attitude towards what makes children feel secure. Consider this story. A woman on the television program Unsolved Mysteries has always been perplexed by her fascination with stories and movies about prison. Only while reading or viewing these stories did she feel warm and secure. It was after finding her birth mother that she learned that she had spent the first 10 months of her life in prison with her mother. She was not in a beautiful room in an expensive home in an exclusive neighborhood. She was in a small, perhaps dim room, but she was in the company of her mother, a mother who had plenty of time to love and bond with her before having to give her up for adoption. That 10-month period was the only time in her life that she had felt secure. What does that tell us? That what lesson can we learn from hearing this woman's story? The future of adoption. What about adoption then? If the separation trauma is so devastating for the child, what should we do? This is not an easy question to answer. It depends on many factors. Adoption is still the best solution for those children who would otherwise languish in foster care or orphanages. But the procurement of babies by some of these methods ongoing today is, in essence, the buying and selling of human lives. This is unconscionable. Oh my god, I cannot speak. Too often, adoption facilitators are more concerned with socioeconomic rather than psychological, emotional, or intellectual considerations. There is a great deal more to preparing for an adopted child than fixing up a nursery or even having money in the bank for a college education. There is a real need for emotional stability, honesty, and the willingness to become truly informed about what this process means for the adopting parents and for their child. Prospective adoptive parents must first make sure that the child they are about to adopt really needs to be adopted. And then they must ask themselves if they are really prepared emotionally and psychologically to meet the needs of that child. Taking one of the truly needy children into one's home is a risky undertaking because they have had so many separation traumas and may have been otherwise abused emotionally, physically, or sexually. Rearing one of these children is a challenge which takes a mature, stable couple to meet. One has to be willing to sacrifice a great deal and expect nothing in return. This does not mean that they will get nothing, just that they should expect nothing. It is necessary for such a couple to know their own Achilles heel, their own vulnerabilities, because these children will push all of their buttons. This is a dilemma. Not everyone is cut out to adopt those children, yet they are the ones who truly need stable homes. A child needs the best chance at life they can have, and no one has the ultimate answer as to what that might be. Someone once said, however, that before we do anything, we should ask ourselves, is this the good for the child? So I'm actually going to answer this question because adoptees will answer it. We don't agree with adoption at all. We prefer family preservation when possible. Obviously, it's not always possible. So, kinship guardianship would be the next goal where it doesn't take away from the trauma, but you are with a family relative. Um, and that needs reform too. And then, if that's not possible, legal guardianship, which is similar to adoption in terms of the guardian has parentalship, but it doesn't erase our identities. Um, but again, the trauma still there, unfortunately. The only way to take away that trauma is not to be separated from the family. And if we can lower the amount of kids that have to go through that, that would be amazing. Just saying. Anyway, lowering expectations. We know that love is good for children, but in the case of adopted children, parents need to be realistic in their expectations of the adoptee's ability to accept love freely or to return it. Trust builds very slowly after a profound separation, such as that which all adoptees experience. This is not a rejection of the person who is trying to give love. It is a way in which the child protects themselves against further loss. This behavior makes a great deal of sense, yet at the same time it is difficult to accept. Adoptive parents need to be assured that adopting a child is very important and that they need not consider themselves failures as parents if their children seem unable to respond as they are or others expect. The life of the family has begun with a handicap, their child's short but profound immediate postnatal history, a span of time which has largely been ignored by parents and professionals as having anything to do with what is going on in an adoptive family life. Yet, in my opinion, it is existential to understanding the dynamics of the adoptive family. Society's attitudes must change. My purpose in writing this book is not to discourage adoption. Well, I am specifically reading it, but whatever. But to add to the understanding of it, what each individual mother decides to do when she finds herself pregnant, she needs to do with the most information she can obtain about the whole concept of life and the mother child relationship, as well as her own personal feelings, beliefs, and circumstances. And whatever her decision happens to be, she needs love and support from the closest to her. Adoptees have a right to understand their own feelings, to have them validated, and to have clinicians to whom they go for help understand their issues of abandonment and loss. Too many of them have been made to feel abnormal or crazy when they have simply been responding to that early experience. Every potential adoptive couple needs to be informed about the primal wound and the impact it will have on them, their child, and their child's biological mother. In preparing for their new child, they should explore their own issues of abandonment and loss. This includes the loss of their fertility, as well as losses resulting from death or divorce. All of these losses, if unresolved, may make them vulnerable and defensive about their child's feelings of rejection and loss. The best gift an adoptive couple can give their child is to work through their own issues of abandonment and loss, whatever form those issues took. Yeah, and generational trauma, I just want to add that on because the way that our grandparents had parented is not necessarily a good thing, and you don't want to repeat the process. So work through that too. Okay. The degree to which this has been accomplished will greatly affect how they act and react in their relationship to their child. I realize that many people would be more comfortable if I were to end this book by painting a rosy picture of adoption, giving a positive send off, so to speak, but I can't, in good conscience, do that. Although adoption may be the best solution to the problem of children who cannot be kept by their biological parents. It is not like a fairy tale in which everyone lives happily ever after. It is a difficult and complex process for everyone concerned. It deserves to be understood and honored as such. Denial and secrecy have no place in this process. Talking about their adoption and their own family and the other family should be a part of every adoptee's relationship with their adoptive parents. This will no way make them any less important to them. It will instead show them that they understand their feelings and need to know about their heritage. Yes, agree. Honesty and understanding will only serve to make the adoptive relationship stronger. One can force dependency on another person, but one cannot force love and respect. It is my hope that this book has contributed to the understanding of adoption as a lifelong and complex process, which results in myriad issues to work through. The manner in which we respond to those issues will have a great deal to do with the developmental and emotional health of the adoptee, the emotional healing of the birth mother, and the success of the adoptive family unit. Many of these suggestions herein can also be helpful in any family situation. The most important lesson may be that of validating a child's feelings and teaching them ways in which to respond responsibly to those feelings. The mystic aspect. I will close with two unusual experiences, which were related to me by adoptees. Of course, of these early interviews, both had to do with the names and the timing of events, or what C.G. Jung calls synchronicity. These were the first of many such phenomena told to me over the years. They made me begin to wonder about the unconscious connection which might exist between an adoptee and their biological family. Both of these events happened to adoptees who had found their birth families. In the first case, the adoptee's adoptive family decided to adopt another child when the adoptee was 13 years old. As a way of making her feel a part of the new adoption process, the adoptive mother told her she could name the baby. The baby was a girl, and she named her Diane. Years later, when she found her birth mother, she discovered that exactly 4 years to the day of her own birth mother, her birth mother had given birth to another little girl and had named her Diane. The adoptee had two sisters named Diane. That's really interesting. In the second story, the adoptee had finally found her birth father. After having been reunited with her birth mother for some time, the adoptee had lived with both of them for the first 4 years of her life until their divorce. It was then that she discovered that her father had remarried and had a son, the adoptee's half-brother. His name was Darrell, and he had died on the same day that her own daughter had been born. She had no idea what to name the new baby, and had just gone through a book of names until she came to the name Carol, but decided that wasn't quite right. She kept going. Darrell, yes, she would name her little girl Darrell. So unknowingly, the new mother, giving birth on the day that her own brother died, a brother whose existence she had been unaware of, named her new daughter after him. I found these two stories and those which people have related to me since fascinating. I wanted to end this book with them because I am intrigued by the question, in just how many ways are we connected with those who came before us? And equally important, why should anyone have the right to keep us from renewing those connections? If we are going to put children first, we are going to have to face with courage and determination the truths about how our decisions impact these children. We are going to have to challenge our previously held ideas and deal with the reality, no matter how difficult and painful it may be. Acknowledging our vulnerabilities, limitations, and obstinacy in dealing with adoption is crucial to having more honest relationships with our children. Our children deserve it. We deserve it. Let us begin. I've always wished that Moses had remained on Sinai a little longer, and that God had given him an 11th commandment: honor thy children. Oh, what a different world it might be. Okay, so that's the end of the book. I just want to say before we end and move on, um, my APs actually read this book when it came out. So it came out the year I was born. And I don't know what month, but I just know that they read it. It was probably before I was born, but they read it. And my mom and I have been talking about this more and more. And she said, I read it and I forgot that I read it, but I can tell you that even though I can cherry pick some things, and again, you guys know I have a good adoption story. I'm in the 1%. None of that negates the trauma that I experienced. And she really took to heart a lot of what the book said. She worked through everything, so did my father. And they do everything that they could to have an open and honest relationship. So even though I always say, yes, all of that is good if you have already adopted, we need to worry about the children who are going through these experiences or may go through these experiences. We need to put as much care into family preservation as possible. And if you're a hopeful adoptive parent, please understand that right now, it, no, well, here in the US, I'm going to speak to that. There is no ethical adoptions. It's all unethical and it's all immoral. And yeah, it is human trafficking. Even through foster care, there are so many issues with it. I hope you guys stick around for the next book, which will be Chosen Children 2021 by Lori Carangelo, where I do talk more about both foster care and adoption and the legal portions of it as well as where the money is, because I think that is really important to know as well. Alright, guys, I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow with a new chapter.